GLC is now offering a free audio stream of our 24/7 broadcast that we're calling GLC Radio, an online radio station that broadcasts our round-the-clock audio stream on a variety of platforms. GLC Radio gives you the ability to listen to GLC virtually anywhere, through your home or office computer, or on the go with a mobile device. You can access GLC Radio through our website or by searching for God's Learning Channel through iTunes Internet Radio, TuneInRadio.com, or on Shoutcast.com. Explore various GLC Radio-enabled mobile apps by visiting our website at glc.us.com/listen/GLC Radio. GLC Radio, your free connection to GLC anywhere, anytime.
Well, welcome to our favorite update, the one on Friday afternoon.
Yay, because it means Shabbat's about to start and I can go home and go to bed.
Okay, what do we got going on, ladies?
Lots.
Lots?
Well, actually, we have a lot of things going on, but it's not lots. Lots is our acronym for Light of the Southwest.
Okay, what else have we got going on there?
We've got that too.
Well, we have our weekend lineup, of course, and Sunday is yet another day that we're supposed to be praying for the persecuted. In fact, that's pretty much been happening every Sunday this month.
Yes.
So please remember that. And
put it on your calendar so you don't forget.
I'm going to share an article with you right after we do the weekend lineup. How about that? Because we got some shocking stuff that's happening here in Texas. Okay, so this weekend, starting tonight, Friday night at 8 o'clock, we have Teresa Richenberger, Zoya Rogers, and Laura Zinger. What a tremendous program. That gal at the top of the screen is Teresa, and she was...
She's awesome.
She's awesome. She's awesome, but I'm telling you, she lived a life of hell in hell, pretty much. So if you've missed it or you want to see it again, tonight at 8 o'clock, Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m., and Monday way early at 1 a.m. Great program. And then Pastor Moses Mujagusi and Gloria Youngblood. He's from Uganda. She is from right here in Midland, Texas. That'll be airing at Saturday 5 a.m. and Sunday at 1 a.m. Gracia Burnham.
Awesome.
That was back from 2011. That's how long ago that was. That will be airing Saturday at 8 p.m., Sunday 5 a.m., Monday 2 p.m. Gracia and her husband were kidnapped in the Philippines by Islamic extremists, and they were held hostage for a long time. Her husband was killed.
That story is still pertinent today.
That story is probably more pertinent today than it was when we filmed it 4 years ago. But Gracia loves those people.
Yes, she
She
does.
has,
She's still ministering to them.
She is still ministering to them. And then last but certainly not least, we have Judy Reamer. That was a great program.
Yes, it was.
Boy, did I enjoy hosting her. Airing Saturday at 1 a.m., Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m., Sunday evening at 8 p.m., and Monday morning when you're getting ready to go back to work at 7 a.m. She has a radical come to Jesus story.
She does.
She had a radical come to Jesus meeting.
She did, almost like
Paul.
Yes.
Saul of Tarsus. Yeah, blinded
She
by the
was
light.
blinded
She
by
was
the
literally
light.
blinded by the light. And, you know, every once in a while, I'll just tell you something personal about me. I will just be there, and sometimes I'll be outside, and I'll be like, I'll just close my eyes. And you know how you can see the sun through your eyes, and it's just so bright? And yesterday, I was like, Lord, I would just really love to see you. I would love to see you. And he's like, you don't have time to be blinded by my light. Like, okay. Oh. So anyway, he's like, you know what, Amy, we've got a good thing going on. So, okay, so here in Texas, we had something so shocking happen. I got this last night from Texas Values. You're going to want to log on to their website, especially if you live here in Texas, and sign their petition, because this week the Dallas City Council fast-tracked and approved an aggressive and dangerous bathroom ordinance that allows men into women's bathrooms and tramples religious freedom. In a surprise move that involved the city Council approving controversial language in a closed-door meeting late Monday night without public input. The council voted unanimously to pass the new sweeping language Tuesday morning. The language is similar to the gender identity, sexual orientation, and public accommodations language contained in the Houston bathroom ordinance that was empathetically defeated by Houston voters 61 to 39% just last week. And, you know, we were really afraid that that thing was going to pass down there, but Houston stepped up and they're like, oh, no, you're not.
Dallas would have, too, if they'd had a chance.
So make no mistake that LGBT advocates want to spread these dangerous laws to every city in Texas. The voters in Houston made a strong statement, but now Dallas and, you know, all of Texas must send the message that we will not allow common sense, safety, and religious freedom to be destroyed by political correctness.
That's right.
So go online to texasvalues.com or .org and find that petition and get it signed.
And you might want to call your local city council and just put a bug in their ear.
Say, don't you dare be doing this to us.
Don't you do that to us.
Okay, so good news. Dad, do you have a letter?
Got a letter. The letter comes from here in Texas. It says, I want to thank you all for the hard work that you are doing. I have been watching for a long time on cable. It has changed throughout the years. Now it's West Texas. That's out of Hereford. And they are doing your conversion. Thank you, Alice. Thank you from Alice in Friona.
So Friona's near Hereford?
It is.
On the same cable system?
Yes, West
Probably.
Texas cable.
Probably.
Okay, so just a reminder, a portion of the GLC system has been black for over a week now, since last Thursday, because we switched off of the SES satellite, and now people who are viewing us or who were viewing us on off the air, where they could just pick it up on their antenna, right now that is not the case, because we have step 2 at every one of those, our full power transmitters that we've got to get done to get those back up and running. And we have to do that by FCC law or everything closes anyway. We have filed that with the FCC now.
And I had to tell them that it was financial. Our lawyer was surprised.
So anyway, so we need finances to make that a happening thing. But then also there's a couple of things that you can help with. One is prayer, lots of prayer.
Amen.
But calling your cable company or calling your friends in other areas who you've heard have lost GLC and they don't know what's going on, tell them call your cable company
Amen.
to help get us back on the air. Because some of the cable companies, believe it or not, are actually, because the people love us so much and they're calling, they're actually doing the work themselves to get us back on.
That's right.
So that's a tremendous blessing. So we're happy with that.
That's
so
right.
there you are.
Okay.
All right.
Are
Devotion?
Are you in love?
No. Well, yeah.
1 John 2:15. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. Have you ever noticed that when people are in love, they tend to forget everything else? Everything becomes secondary. Cars, houses, money, nothing matters. It's all secondary to being in love. Then when they fall out of love, as in a divorce, all of a sudden those things mean everything. They argue about all the little meaningless things they ever owned together. Each wants it all for himself. Same is true with the Lord. Before we know him, all we really have are possessions. But when we come to know God, truly know him, those little things mean very little. We're in love. We're willing to give up everything. Those people who are most in love with God and filled with his love are the least possessive and the least materialistic. If we've been wrapped up in our possessions, we've lost sight of our greatest treasure. All that stuff means nothing. Let go of it. Return to your first love. Lighten your heart and fall in love again with the love of God.
Amen.
See, I am in love with him.
Yep.
which is an amazing thing. Okay, a really short article to kick this thing off comes from the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. On Tuesday, the U.S. Senate passed a resolution expressing support for Israel and condemning Palestinian terror attacks. The Senate resolution, which had 67 co-sponsors, 41 Republicans and 28 Democrats, passed by unanimous consent. It condemned in, quote, the harshest terms possible, the attacks that have left 11 Israelis dead and 145 wounded, and called on Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas to stop incitement by Palestinian officials and the media. The resolution further affirmed that the Senate stands with the people of Israel during these difficult days and supports the Jewish state's right to self-defense, rejecting any suggestion of the moral equivalence of Israeli security personnel protecting its citizens and terrorist intent to deliberately take innocent lives. Reiterating U.S. policy that a final peace must be negotiated, the Senate resolution called on all parties to return to talks immediately and without preconditions. The resolution was introduced on November 3rd, a few days prior to the White House announcement that the United States would not broker a peace agreement before President Barack Obama leaves office. But just last week, the U.S. House of Representatives passed its own resolution condemning the Palestinian terror. So that's good news.
Yes, it is.
Both houses, yeah.
It is good news. And it's about time. I think they're maybe hearing us a little bit that we don't like what they're not doing up there.
Well, then again, it's really hard to miss what's going on over in Israel.
Is, if you're paying any attention.
You know, it's like, oh my goodness. Did you guys see that woman? She went up to like a security checkpoint. So they had a camera on her, a Muslim lady in all her garb. She reaches into her purse. She pulled out a knife that long and went after the guy she was talking to.
Really?
Yeah, that just happened a couple of days ago.
Yeah, it did.
I missed it.
That was all over the news because it was so clear. It was like, wow, okay.
Well, this article comes from Yahoo Politics. The Obama administration is moving to designate the Islamic State's murderous attacks on the Yazidi in Iraq as an act of genocide, an extremely rare move intended to ratchet up international pressure against the terror organization, administration officials told Yahoo News. The action, which sources say could be announced by Secretary of State John Kerry in the next few weeks, has been pushed by top officials at the Human Rights and Religious Freedom offices at the State Department. The move has also been prodded by a report to be released today by the U.S. Holocaust Museum.
Well, that report documents horrific mass killings and sexual slavery targeting the small Yazidi community, as well as crimes against other ethnic minorities by Islamic State forces who swept through northern Iraq last year. Cameron Hudson, the director of the Holocaust Museum's Center for the Prevention of Genocide, which commissioned the report, said, "What we found is there was a deliberate attempt by the forces of the Islamic State to not only ethnically cleanse the Yazidi population, that is, forcibly remove them from their lands, but to exterminate them. And as they're continuing to hold, kidnap, and enslave the Yazidi women and children, this is a crime that's still being committed."
The move to invoke the powerfully evocative genocide label comes amid continuing internal discussions among senior officials at the White House, the State Department, and other agencies about the legal implications of such a statement. A loosely worded 1948 treaty calls on signatory nations, including the United States, to take unspecified action to prevent and to punish the odious scourge of genocide.
But officials cautioned that there were still issues to iron out before committing the U.S. to a legal designation that some may argue requires an adjustment to U.S. military strategy. That strategy is currently designed in President Obama's formulation to ultimately destroy the Islamic State, a goal that the ranking Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Representative Adam Schiff, acknowledged this week could take between 15 and 20 years absent intervention by ground troops from neighboring countries.
The Yazidi, an ancient population of about 500,000 who practice a religion that incorporates elements of Christianity and Islam, first attracted international attention over a year ago as Islamic State forces besieged thousands of refugees who had fled to Mount Sinjar in northern Iraq, trapping them without food or water. What especially alarmed officials and set the Islamic State conduct apart from other atrocities by Islamic State against Christians and other minorities is that the terror group openly declared its intention to wipe out the Yazidi. In its English language magazine, Dabiq, the Islamic State denounced the Yazidi as devil worshippers and exhorted radical followers to kill male Yazidi and enslave the women.
Wow. It looks like we have another article.
We do. Fits right in with that. And it's the reason that the State Department's looking at
this one
that.
comes from the Washington Times. For more than a year, Iraq's Yazidis have watched a human tragedy unfold as members of their quiet religious community have been enslaved, tortured, and killed by Islamic State militants. The community and its Iraqi and Kurdish defenders have repeatedly pressed for more U.S. intervention with limited success. A delegation was in Washington last month to make the case.
But frustration at the slow pace of Western intervention has forced some elements of the Yazidi community to look elsewhere for help. Russia. Saad Barkesh, the translator for the delegation that met with State Department officials, said Mr. Edo confirmed that the Yazidi Pope, known as the Baba Sheikh, has been in Moscow since Monday seeking Russian help to protect the community from further violence and persecution by the Islamic State.
The Yazidi delegation to Russia made several other requests, including humanitarian aid for more than 400,000 Yazidis living under difficult conditions, support from the Russian military to liberate more than 3,500 Yazidi held captive by the Islamic State, including children in jihadi training camps, and Russian support to refer a case of genocide from the UN Security Council to the International Criminal Court in The Hague.
Late Wednesday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov vowed that Russia would play a larger role protecting Christians in the Middle East, according to the official Russian news agency TASS. The Middle East is a cradle of Christianity, Mr. Lavrov was quoted as saying. Christians have been living there for 2,000 years. It should be done so that the civilizational tissue of that region would be preserved and would not be breached.
Nearly 100,000 ethnic Yazidis also are living in Russia. Mr. Edo objects to the Yazidi mission to Russia, fearing it will undermine the effort of his delegation to gain the help of U.S. officials. The U.S. will not work together with the Russians, said Mr. Barkash, speaking on behalf of the delegation representing the Yazidi Movement for Progress and Reform. If the Russians get involved with helping the Yazidi hostage problem, the U.S. officials will pull back.
Of 5,000 Yazidi civilians taken hostage last year, 2,129 have been released, including many women and children suffering from PTSD, Mr. Barkash told the Washington Times. The remaining 3,000 hostages are unaccounted for, and some may have been executed, the delegation reported. Mass graves were discovered north of Mount Sinjar after the Islamic State was pushed out, Mr. Samo said.
Until about July of this year, many of the women sold as brides or as sex slaves had kept their cell phones and were able to call relatives to report their conditions. Some called from Raqqa, the Syrian capital of the Islamic State, or from various towns of western Iraq. Other women were calling from Saudi Arabia. Our women are being sold all over the Middle East, Mr. Samo said.
Mental conditioning has been forced upon underage hostages, many of whom are being trained as Islamic State cadre, Mr. Samo said. We have seen videos of Yazidi children as young as 5 demanding that their mothers and brothers and sisters convert to Islam.
For Yazidis and other minorities living in internally displaced camps in the Kurdish region of Iraq, the coming of winter will only exacerbate the dire living conditions. A shortage in humanitarian aid means more cuts to basic services on which these ethno-religious minorities heavily rely.
Throughout the meetings, the Iraqi delegation spoke of the need of the internally displaced people, asking for psychosocial services, counseling and support services for women and girls who have fled captivity from the Islamic State, as well as aid to combat the annual harsh winter conditions that are expected to hit northern Iraq, which increases the stress on families taking shelter in light plastic tents, said Delia Kashhart, director of the Nineveh Council of America, an organization that advances the concerns of ethno-religious minorities from Iraq and Syria.
There are 350,000 civilian Yazidi refugees in Dohuk, a large Kurdish city near the Turkish border, lodged in 17 teeming tent cities. The remainder are sheltered in 2 tent camps near Erbil and 2 in Sulaymaniyah in the eastern part of Kurdistan. Still, the Yazidis are outnumbered by Muslim and Christian victims of violence who fled into Kurdistan last year as well. The Kurdish regional government is struggling to find food and space for approximately 1.8 million refugees.
One goal of the visit by the Yazidi delegation that came to Washington on October 20th was to petition the Obama administration and Congress to classify the atrocities committed against the Yazidis as acts of genocide. If the U.S. Congress declares the mass killing in Iraq as a genocide, then other countries will want to help financially, Mr. Samos said. The delegation also pressed for help with exit visas to other countries, Mr. Ito said.
A final prescription urged by the delegation is for NATO and the coalition partners of the Baghdad government to create a safe haven in the Nineveh Plain east of Mosul. Some in Congress, including Representative Jeff Fortenberry, a Republican from Nebraska, have spoken in favor of creating a safe zone in the Nineveh Plain east of Mosul for Yazidi and other minorities. While the international security forces set up a protective perimeter for our people, we will train our young men to serve as people's militia and to take over the entire security job, Mr. Samos said. So they've been here since October the 20th. What's today? The 13th?
This is November.
October 20th to November 13th, so 23 days.
Wow.
Right now, so more than 3 weeks. They have been apparently petitioning the Obama administration to declare this a genocide so that they can have international help. So if we don't jump on board right now, Russia is going to step up to the plate, just like they've done in Syria.
That's right.
Russia has no intention of letting the Islamic State take over the world.
That's right. That's right. Well, this article from the Washington Post is very interesting. Twin suicide bombings claimed by the Islamic State killed dozens of people and wounded more than 200 in Beirut on yesterday, raising fears of intensified attempts by the radical Sunni group to undermine Lebanon's fragile stability. In the worst attack to hit the Lebanese capital in years, the 2 bombers stuck close together in the notoriously congested area of the city during rush hour, apparently to maximize the number of victims, which included children, Lebanese officials said.
The assailants targeted a southern suburb where many loyalists of the powerful Shiite Hezbollah militia live, leaving little doubt that the suicide bombers struck with the intent of stirring up Lebanon's volatile sectarian divisions. Hezbollah is fighting alongside Syrian government forces against the Sunni-led rebellion in Syria, drawing the ire of such military anti-Shiite groups such as the Islamic State. Lebanon faced a string of similar bombings more than a year ago that also targeted the largely Shiite areas of Beirut.
In a statement translated by the SITE intelligence group, the Islamic State said the first bomber struck with an explosive rigged motorcycle, followed by a second assailant wearing a suicide vest. The statement, published on Twitter and other social network platforms, said the group targeted the Hezbollah stronghold. The statement's authenticity could not be independently verified. The Lebanese health minister said a third suicide bomber was killed when the second attacker detonated his explosives, preventing that third person from detonating his payload.
The explosions killed at least 43 people and wounded more than 200. At the scene of the attack, mangled bodies lay in pools of blood and broken glass as people shouted for help and tried to find missing loved ones. Security personnel who had rushed to the scene appeared stunned by the carnage. Ambulances could be heard speeding to and from the scene late into the night, while hospitals and aid groups issued public requests for blood donations.
Prime Minister Tamim Salem called for a national day of mourning and an end to the sectarian-driven squabbles that have crippled Lebanon's government to the point of even hampering trash collection in Beirut. Lebanese politicians have failed to come to agreement for the past 17 months over selecting a president. The paralysis resulted in a garbage collection crisis that left festering mounds of trash in the streets of Beirut and prompted large anti-government protest over the summer. The Prime Minister said in a statement following Thursday's attack, "I pray that this tragedy is enough to wake up politicians so that they can put their differences aside so we can protect the country."
Thursday's attack is a blow to Hezbollah's security in the capital, and it comes as Lebanon increasingly struggles with the multifaceted fallout from the devastating civil war in neighboring Syria. Lebanon's diverse religious groups maintain tense relations with each other that can easily explode into violence. Factions in the country fought a devastating 15-year civil war, which ended in 1990. Such attacks in the past have been carried out by Sunni extremists angered by Hezbollah's entry into the Syrian civil war.
The Lebanese militia is backed by Shiite Iran, which also is an ardent supporter of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. His government against the Sunni-led rebellion. The bombings in Lebanon had stopped about a year and a half ago after a Hezbollah offensive along the Syrian-Lebanon border subdued the militants who had been directing attacks in the capital. Those militants were linked to such extremist groups as Jabhat al-Nusra, Syria's al-Qaeda affiliate, and the Islamic State.
The lull in bombings also resulted from greater cooperation between Hezbollah and Lebanon's Sunni politicians. That coordination became more urgent as the Islamic State made rapid territorial gains in Iraq and Syria and appeared to threaten Lebanon's tenuous stability. Over the past year, much of Beirut's Shiite-dominated southern suburbs have been put on lockdown, with checkpoints and patrols by the military and Hezbollah fighters closely scrutinizing all that comes into the area.
World powers are scheduled to meet in Vienna this weekend to discuss ways of ending the Syrian conflict, which has killed more than 250,000 people and displaced millions. The gathering is backed by Washington and Moscow, which support opposing sides in the war and signals rising international urgency to end a conflict that has empowered extremists and aggravated already simmering sectarian tension in the region. Still, the chances for any sudden diplomatic breakthrough appears to be slim. Differences over what to do with Assad in the post-conflict transition still divide the opposing sides.
So basically all hell is breaking loose all over the earth.
It is.
That's what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, pray for these people. This is so
Absolutely.
heartbreaking. During that first article on the Yazidis, that picture of that little girl, her hair is such a ratted mess. Most beautiful blue eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And you just look at that innocence and you're like, Lord, thank you, Ryan. There she is.
Yeah.
Just tired and worn out. She's
Mm-hmm.
resting as they're fleeing.
Mm-hmm.
She's just resting. So, bad news as we were coming in here to record this afternoon. A terrorist attack in Paris today.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers are not good. Last we heard, I believe, 26 had been killed.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, we've got some interesting stuff to share with you already next week.
We do.
In the meantime,
Pray for the persecuted church.
pray for the persecuted church. As the Word of God says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem,
Amen.
because that means our King is coming. Hallelujah.
We love
He
you.
is.
Shabbat Shalom.